Coogs House. Exhausted is the word Kelvin Sampson used to describe his Houston Cougars after a hard-fought win over the Cincinnati Bearcats. But the more important word in that sentence is win. And let's break it down.
You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs, daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth, here to break down all things Cougs. If you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, and again, we've been saying this week, we know the name of one of you. Please be sure to subscribe down below. Then we listen to Cougs in your news feed each and every day. Appreciate you making Locked On Coogs your first listen of the day. If you're on YouTube, welcome back to the YouTube channel. It's so good to see you again. Remember to subscribe, like, and comment on the video. Let us know you're in the contest. We're at the point we're doing 500 subscribers. As we get to 2,500, we're doing some sort of a giveaway. So hit subscribe, help us get there. Like and comment on the video to let us know you're in the contest. If you don't know what to say in this instance, just kind of dumbfounded, just don't know what to say after that game, just so tired like the guys on the team are, tell us in the comments if you're a red salsa or a green salsa person. Now, today's episode is going to be looking at all kinds of different things from the Cincinnati game, talking about what is so tiring for Houston right now and why that's okay. Talking about some non-scoring impacts on this basketball game, because I love to break the things down that impact the basketball game beyond the box score, and the box score focuses a lot on points, obviously. And then last, we got a short segment, but I want to talk about something I'm proud of in watching Houston Cougars basketball this season and watching other Big 12 basketball as a top conference in all of college basketball. I think it's interesting to see where Houston sits amongst its competitors. But in opening the show, Houston did knock down Cincinnati. They won 67-59, an 8-point victory, although down the stretch, Houston was up double digits for a lot of the second half. Frankly, all the way till about 3 minutes left. Houston was up by 13 and 11, kind of teetering there for a second, back and forth, before ultimately winning by 8 points. Houston shot just 38.9% from home, which goes against everything I'd probably said in the preview podcast because of how well they've been shooting at home before this. Cincinnati made it tough on them. Cincinnati is a tough opponent. But the story of the game was people concerned at the national level, I should say, about if being number one was weighing too heavily on the Houston Cougars' shoulders. And I want to talk some about the individual performances later, but I think it was interesting to hear kind of the response to that from Sampson and the team after the game, because it was Sampson and Jamal were the two guys that spoke, but Jamal's got such a great beat on that locker room that I think it's worth hearing him out on that. But at times in this game, and Sampson was open to admitting it, it felt like Houston got out to that big lead. At some points, it was 16, 15, 17 points, and just kind of let their foot off the gas. And they fell into shooting slumps, so they would kind of waste clock in the shot clock, and then at the end of it, not be able to get off a very good shot at the end of the shot clock that you almost wish they hadn't wasted the first 15 seconds of. Outside of Cryer, there wasn't a whole lot of pure offense happening. They did run Cryer off of like Reggie Miller type of actions, pin screens here, flare screens there, etc., getting him open. He did a good job of attacking the lane as well. I don't remember a game where Cryer shot that many 2-point field goals, 5 2-point field goals, not in fast breaks. And I don't know that I remember a game where he's done that in Houston Cougar uniform yet this year, off the top of my head. But Sampson alluded to at the end of the game that this was a product of exhaustion, that the last 10 days, or he kept saying week, but it's really just over that, just an emotional roller coaster. He beat Texas defiantly at home, right? An in-state rival of giant proportions that means a lot to every kid on this roster, right? You beat Baylor this past Saturday, another big-time rival, overtime game, number 11 team in the country. They won the national title 2 years ago. Future Hall of Fame coach over on the other sideline in that one. Oh, and in between, you had Iowa State the team that beat you earlier this year. You had to win an emotional game at home in that one as well. That's an incredibly difficult week to then bounce back and just, oh, hey, now we're going to go play Cincinnati with a well-coached Wes Miller squad. And what do you do, on your off days there? Oh, you lose a key rotational piece, Ramon Walker, for the season. The emotional toll of that on the whole, Sampson was very blunt in talking about. And I think it's worth keeping in mind, like, this is not a video game simulation, right? That's entirely part of the grind of the Big 12. It's what makes you tough for March. It's either going to wear you down where you're not around in March, or you're tough enough for it. And Houston's winning. And I think that's what's interesting. And that Sampson could point out is like, this is not, the quote was, this is not a funeral. Okay. Our kids, he would continue. Our kids are exhausted mentally and emotionally. We got to get them refreshed. And then when asked about the win and what he saw in this, and he said, this time of year, you don't evaluate them. And respectfully, like, it's the job of you and I to sit here and evaluate them. That's what we're sitting here talking about the game. But from Sampson's point of view, he's exactly right. You're getting wins. You're stacking them up. You're moving on to the next one, trying to find a way to win the next game. You know who you are. Other teams know who you are. The goal is not to evaluate these things, right? The goal is to stay fresh, get refreshed, get healthy, get as healthy as you can, and keep trying to put together and stack wins. And they've done that, right? They've done that 25 of the 28 times they've been on the basketball court this year. I would point out, too, that he mentioned something about, briefly mentioned that JoJo's got an ankle thing going on. He played more against Cincinnati than he did against Baylor. People start questioning that. And I almost wonder if that is why he sat, I insinuated after the Baylor game, I wondered if the crowd was a big factor. He's a freshman. He's super young. That was a crazy raucous place. And it may have. He also, though, if that ankle's bothering him, might have been a little bit of both. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B kind of thing. I would point out, though, that with those injuries, with that emotional roller coaster, with all of those things happening, Houston found a way to win the basketball game. They found a way to come out and at home in front of a great crowd. Whiteout went well. They found a way to win, and that is not a given in college basketball. That is not a given in this conference, right? Over the weekend, you see Wake Forest knock out Duke. And we all talk about the court storming thing afterwards, but Wake Forest knocks out Duke. We see that, right? It's a big part of this. Over the weekend, you see other top 10 teams going down. Purdue's lost to Nebraska earlier this year. UConn lost to Creighton. All top 5 teams go down, right? Houston continues to win. That's important. In our own conference, Kansas lost at home on Tuesday night to an unranked BYU team. This conference is a gauntlet. Anyone can beat you on any given night, and even when Houston is tired, worn out, and not playing their best game, Houston finds a way to win. And I maintain, Cincinnati, 16-12, 5-10 in the conference, going to be on the bubble, if not just outside of, if they make the tournament. Let's just be honest. Then you'd probably win a handful of games in the conference tournament to have a real shot at it, right? As far as the standings go, I guess technically they're not the worst team in the Big 12, but they're just at the top of that list. If they won a couple games in the conference tournament, you could maybe tell me that, like, oh, they got closer to 500 or by the end of it, but well-coached team, developing program for sure. But they're a team that Houston should beat and find a way to beat. There are plenty of games in this conference where people should beat somebody and can't, right? They just can't. And Houston did. And we talked about LJ Cryer. He was particularly impressive. He scored a lot of points, and it felt like instant offense when they could find him and get him the ball, honestly. He was flying around off screens. And then, interestingly enough, once he caught the ball and they overreacted to those catch-and-shoot jumpers, he's able to get in lane. He got an and one and that kind of stuff. Had a couple nice dimes, a great one to J1, as J1 did a tee-up for a nice little dunk afterwards. Great game out of him offensively. Unfortunately, that's kind of where, like, the individual offensive accolades stop. Now, Emmanuel Sharp had 11 points, and J1 finished with 15, although J1 went 7 of 9 free throws, the positive there is that J1 went 7 of 9 free throws. That's unbelievable to me. But it also means 7 of 15 points are free throws. And so take that as you may. They're trying to foul him, hack, shack kind of stuff down the stretch. But I want to talk about in the second segment some impact some guys had that wasn't scoring or wasn't directly scoring. I want to give a couple guys their due because, one of them I think gets kind of left out of getting the shine. And the other one I think is going to be poo-pooed on a lot by the national media on Wednesday after his performance. But before we get to that, you are running out of opportunities to get to go see the Houston Cougars in person. They're a great show. Fertitta's a great venue. And frankly, you could also be looking at tickets for that road game in Norman. That's not an undrivable distance by any stretch. Big 12 tournament, Kansas City. Here, the barbecue is great. Looks like Houston may be playing their Sweet 16 Elite Eight game. Those two rounds may be as close as Dallas. Whatever the case may be, if you're looking for tickets, go to gametime.co right now. Download the Game Time app today and use code Locked On for $20 off. They got all kinds of great deals to make sure you're getting the best prices in America. They can show you exactly what the seat looks like from your row and section. If you pick a row and section, just say, give me any seat, you get an average of 18% savings from there. All kinds of great things going on Game Time right now. And if you can find someone that has the seats in the same row and section for less, they'll refund you 110% of the difference. So make sure you go to Game Time right now. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. That's use code Locked On, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Again, Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Now, obviously, the point of basketball, and I always try to simplify it down to this when I get like two in my head about X's and O's and nerding out and whatever. The point is to put the round thing in the circle thing a bunch of times and to make sure that the guy doesn't, right? And I don't mean to say that scoring is not important. I'm an offensive guy when it comes to like offensive and defensive and X's and O's and whatever, right? It makes me marvel at what Sampson does defensively because the anticipation, the thought process, et cetera, is all crazy. It's just so detailed. But two guys that are either, like I said, for the ad, going to get forgotten about because he's the fifth starter at a very talented team, or Jamal Shead, who might get poo-pooed on some by national medias or other rival local outlets or whatever, is Javier Francis and Jamal Shead kind of don't get their shine in this one because they don't put up the scoring numbers. And frankly, games on ESPN2, which is great, but not the main ESPN. I don't know what was on ESPN. NBA's on. It's a Tuesday night, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so people just check the box score and see that Jamal Shead had 9 points and Javier Francis had 6 points. Like, oh, man, they didn't have it. Look like LJ Crowder had a great day and just keep on moving. And that is so disingenuous and so not fair to the performance those two had. We talk about Jamal a lot. I want to talk about him a second in this segment, but I got to talk about what Javier Francis did. Now, Javier played 26 minutes, but he had 3 blocks and 3 steals, and I still don't think that quantifiably does justice to the defensive impact he had. I maintain he won the game defensively against Baylor. Obviously, there are great offensive performances in that one as well, but his defense in the overtime period sealed the deal for sure, right, against Baylor. And he continued that stretch in this one, had just 3 fouls across the 26 minutes. Again, for a big man playing big man roles, that's important, especially when our bench is as short as it is. He was able to get on the perimeter and go side to side with different guards. Like, I guess Newman's not a guard for Cincinnati, but he definitely plays a lot along the perimeter. He got out there with Dede Thomas a couple times. He even covered Jizzle James that they're super lightning quick once or twice. I was more impressed, though, when he was covering Aziz Bandago down low. And he was able to, a lot of different times, deke the guy driving into making a bad decision, either throwing a bad pass turned into a turnover, or throwing a bad pass that meant Bandago couldn't just catch and score, or taking a shot that wasn't an easy shot, or getting a shot blocked, right? And you saw it most notably, frankly, when people thought they had lobs. For whatever reason, he could deke Cincinnati into throwing lobs. That's great film study, great understanding of the situation. And then he just went up and either tapped them like deflections or stole them out of the air. It was extremely impressive to do because, frankly, it requires intelligence, it requires film study, it requires understanding what the other guy's trying to do, keying on their body language, making the right moves, frankly, a little bit of a gamble, and then seizing on the opportunity in a brief instant where you can't be late, you can't be early. Really, really impressive defense from him inside of about 8 feet from the rim, where he's covering his guy, Bodego, and able to get out. Now, I think Bodego will be a pro center. He's an impressive, long, tall athlete. He only scored 7 points. So it's not like JBR was selling out to only cover other guys. His own guy also only has 7 points. And, you know, he also, in a game where Cincinnati out rebounded Houston, held Bodego to just 5 rebounds, right? I mean, this is an impressive outing from JVR amongst a bunch of different ways. He was able to stay in front of a bunch of different guys. He continues to impress. And as Sampson always says, he's the starting center on what is now the top team in America. He needs some respect. And one guy that might get some disrespect on Wednesday will be Jamal, because Jamal is the face of this team. He's the face of the program right now. And frankly, when his jersey is hanging up in the rafters one day, because I think it will, he's going to be one of those guys that's like a name and face you identify with everything about Houston basketball in the Kelvin Sampson era, because he is everything about Houston Cougar basketball in the Kelvin Sampson era, right? Jamal, in the first match with Cincinnati, had a pretty good time scoring the basketball, right? And then on Tuesday night, it was very clear that Cincinnati was like, hey, that guy, number one, ain't beating us. We're going to find someone else to do it. And I would almost argue that even though he had just 9 points and just 2 made field goals, Jamal did beat them. Jamal, you could argue, was the MVP of this game by the way he orchestrated both the offense and defense, like a middle linebacker on one side and a quarterback on the other. He had 11 assists in this contest. And frankly, I would also argue some of his better passes were the coulda, shoulda, woulda been assist kind of things, where a guy catches the ball but fumbles it near the rim, or a guy catches the ball in a great spot and misses a jumper they normally make, or whatever, right? He did a great job of finding his teammates all night long. It felt like he walked in the gym with 4 assists. He blinked in the first half and it's like, oh, he's already got 4. When did that happen? It just happened so naturally for him. It frankly was so clear that he was occupying eyes of all 5 defenders that he could hit those flares to LJ Query. He could hit those drop offs to J1 Roberts. He could hit that kick out to Emmanuel Sharp, right? I got to say that, I was kind of disappointed in the ESPN broadcast for not being more obvious on this part, right? All of Houston's offense was set up by the puppet master that is Jamal Shead, all the way down to the literal last second of the first half. And then go to the halftime show when there's poo-pooing on the offense and, oh, they only have 20 whatever points. But did you not see what was going on? I mean, that was art. It was beautiful. And the way he was dribbling the basketball, even when Houston wasn't necessarily making other shots, was impressive. He was dictating the movements of the other 9 guys on the floor. It was just super impressive. Then defensively, he had a handful of steals, super aggressive. And he said in the post game, when asked, hey, Jamal, what do you do? How do you get after it in games like this? What's your mindset when your shots aren't falling? Because he didn't make a jump shot. Frankly, the 2 shots he made were both kind of difficult layups and one shots. What do you do? And his response was immediately, I try to be the best defender on the floor. Full stop. And I'd argue the only guy competing with him was his buddy Javier Francis, right? I mean, he was on the perimeter and the same kinds of things. Shit had 4 steals to his own name. And again, steals don't count the types of deflections and forced bad passes and rush decisions. I mean, he forced Jizzle James into 2 different air balls from 3 that he had no business shooting, but it was like a spaz reaction when Jamal Shead closed out, and just got rid of the ball and shot an air ball. That's, again, impressive defensive performances out of Jamal Shead, all dictated by him finding other ways to control the game. Sampson always talks about finding ways to impact winning. I think it's important. Again, the goal is to win. When you step on the floor between the lines, the goal is always to win. I don't want to lose sight of that. But Jamal was able to impact winning by dictating everyone else's movement on both ends of the floor. And it was extremely impressive to watch. It's what makes him, my pick for. I mean, I was a little biased, but for National Player of the Year, Naismith Player of the Year, etc., I think he's probably going to win the Big 12 one, like almost on locks, right? They win the conference, it can't not be him, probably, right? And I feel like this is almost a game that, yes, quantitatively, you look at and you say, 9 points, unranked Cincinnati team that's below 500 in conference at home. Come on, Jamal. But when you actually qualitatively watch the game, observe what's happening, see what he's doing, oh my God. It's not even, it's no contest. There's no one in the conference, no one in America. And I watch a lot of basketball, right? Part of the reason I didn't go live was I wanted to see some of the Kansas BYU game. I want to see some of Texas Tech. I saw them littering on the floor in Lubbock. I enjoy watching a lot of different high-level college basketball around the country when I'm not watching the Cougs, frankly, especially when it's pertinent to like where we'll see in March and who we'll see in March. It's important, right? Basketball is always on TV at our house. I do have to say, no one in any of those games is controlling the game from start to finish, frankly. He played 36 minutes this one from start to finish, quite like Jamal Shead. Now, if you can't tell, I'm a big fan, Jamal. But I also am proud of Houston for a couple of different things. And I want to get into them for a second. It won't be long. Before we get into that, I enjoy winning. You enjoy winning? I enjoy winning, and I enjoy winning when things get interesting. And right now, if you want to continue to make things interesting and continue to win and even win on your own, you don't have to wait until Saturday when Houston goes to Oklahoma to do it. You can go to FanDuel.com/locked on right now because you can get bugs with your first bet at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets by winning any $5 bets. $150 bonus bets if your $5 bet wins. Now, I've been saying consistently when it comes to the NBA, you need to bet the Rockets at home, bet against them on the road. I feel like I'm doing okay with that right now. But all kinds of quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and more. I have to point out, if you're looking to go put some money on the Final Four odds, national championship odds in college basketball, the time to do it for Houston would have been a while back because as they continue to impress over the course of the year, it continues to kind of shrink a little bit. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon right now to place money wherever you want to make it most interesting to win now. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, so I mentioned I watch a lot of college basketball. I love watching basketball. It's one of the more fun things to watch on TV. I relate basketball to art way too many times. I think my wife is tired of me saying it, honestly. She won't nod right now. I think she's tired of me saying it. But a lot of things are happening in college basketball right now that aren't happening to Houston. And it makes me, I got two things I'm proud of. One, fans are officially, in a lot of places, out of control, right? We saw this in the post-pandemic world in the NBA where people were pouring popcorn on Russell Westbrook and, pushing, was it they spit on Trae Young or push Trae Young, whatever. The way that's translated into college basketball now is they're still crazier than I think pre-pandemic fans out there. Like they're still getting that bottled up energy out, right? And you're seeing court storming chaos when I don't know if things weren't a court storming every time you win a game. Kids getting hurt, right? Kyle Filipowski at Duke got hurt over the weekend in a court storming situation. Caitlin Clark got run over, and because those two players play for, very visible programs and probably a couple of other reasons too, for being honest, that those raise the question of do we need to cancel that altogether? You see, I would just mention that part of the reason I didn't go live is I wanted to watch the other Big 12 games on Tuesday night to kind of get a vibe on what's going on in the conference because I didn't get to as much Saturday with the driving back and forth and kind of stuff. And honestly, you see Kansas fans just distraught after losing to BYU, but probably in a more ugly sense. In Lubbock, there was a really bad Brock Cunningham and KJ Adams are the two guys I think as across the conference play the most Houston Cougar like basketball. And Brock Cunningham at Texas, and competing for a ball, ran a guy into the scorer's table. And I don't think it looked intentional, but he definitely seriously put the kid's, health in jeopardy when he ran him into the scorer's table, right? And he gets tossed, flagrant, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Sure, it happens. Don't want it to happen. It happens. Tech fans down 25 are livid to the point where they're throwing trash on the floor. I mean, water bottles, beer cans, concessions, just throwing them on the floor to the point where Grant McCaslin, first-year head coach, has to get on the microphone and say, guys, we don't do this here. And I'm going to be like, dude, you're the newest one here. There are freshmen on campus that have been there longer than Grant McCaslin, right? And I see all that happening there. I'm like, that's not going to happen at Houston. I'm not saying that there will never be an exciting reason to storm the court ever in Houston Cougar basketball history, but some would call it spoiled. Folks in the Kelvin Sampson era have gotten accustomed to winning and gotten accustomed to physical play and understand that this is competitive. And do we let referees have it when we think they screw us over? Sure. Do we let other teams have it when we think that they're being particularly obnoxious? Sure. Do we chirp with people online? It's not my bag, but some people do. Sure. But on the whole, you don't see, I'm not worried about a court storming catastrophe happening at Fertitta Center. I'm just not. Frankly, Houston may win the Big 12 not at home this year. They play Oklahoma on Saturday. They play at UCF, and then they host Kansas in the final regular season game, right? There's a real chance, based on how things break out, where winning at UCF wins the conference. And we're not court storming somewhere else. I mean, that's not our bag. And that would be an interesting concept in its own, but a court storming to beating Kansas would not be a court storming to beat Kansas, blue blood program that they are. It'd be a lot more about hey, we won the conference in the first year in it, right? And even that would be a little bit more reserved court storming, I think, than the chaos that happens. And I guess they didn't in Kentucky because Kentucky's win on Tuesday night was a road win, but you hear me, right? I think it's impressive to say that Houston Cougar fans have gone from where things were, we'll leave it at that, to this is where we are now. We understand what this means. And frankly, they rushed the field when they beat West Virginia in football, and it was a last second win as well, right? But even that, in watching those videos and the clips, it's very, very reasonable, clearly excited, clearly enthusiastic. I don't mean to diminish that, but very, very reasonable. We're never throwing trash. That's never our bag either. We'll boo, we'll heckle, we'll yell. Never throwing trash. Not our bag. And then the other thing, I guess, is more of an on-court proud moment for Houston is that after beating Cincinnati and after, frankly, Kansas losing, winning this thing is very much within grasp for Houston. Winning the Big 12 and in their first year in it, even I think the most optimistic folks were like, I don't know. It would be tough. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely insane. I can't believe it's actually where we're sitting. I feel like I'm fairly optimistic. I do. I had us winning home games and only winning half the road games. I didn't have us here. I had us dropping a non-conference game to Xavier, right? I had us not where we are, and I'm fairly optimistic. What's going on? The play this year, whether you want to talk about ugly offense, you want to talk about winning ugly, or talk about whatever, you have to talk about it in terms of winning because they just keep winning. And we're going to talk about it as they keep winning, and I'm sure there'll be speed bumps along the way, and who knows, maybe we just jinx the whole thing. But as we talk about it each and every day here at Locked On Coogs, we encourage you to subscribe to get the latest on the Houston Cougars each day here. Locked On Coogs is a proud member of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team, our Cougs, our number one in America Coogs each and every day. Go Coogs.